Hey everybody, this is an incredibly special occasion, man. We love celebrating things here at our church, and one of the most beautiful celebrations that we remember here every year is the remembrance of the settlers coming to Port Shepstone. The last service, the last weekend in the month of August, is a celebration and a remembrance of those amazing people who traveled incredible distances, settled in this community, built this chapel that we worship in, and we just want to take a moment just to reflect on that. I have a great friend and somebody who's been in the church for a good length of time, Brian Hansen. He is one of the descendants from the Norwegian Settlers, and he's the oldest member of the Norwegian clan in our church. There are others that are older, but Brian is going to be sharing some thoughts with you today. I have a number of questions that I'd like to ask Brian today, and I know that this is going to be a real blessing to you. So from wherever you are watching this today, just know that you celebrate along with us here in the church at this very great occasion of our 143rd birthday. Brian, thank you for being willing to be interviewed today. This is a big deal thing. 143 years, Hansen, is a very long time. You haven't been here for 143 years, but you have some incredible memories. You've grown up in this church. You've been a part of this for so long. And I just want to ask you, what are some of your earliest childhood memories, Brian?
Yeah, thank you, Trevor. It's a wonderful privilege. And 143 years. I've been around now for 82 years. So it's quite a big difference. But when I remember my childhood, first of all, I must say that I'm very grateful that I grew up in a Christian home. Both my parents loved the Lord. At the age of 13, I made a personal commitment to follow the Lord and accept Him as my personal Savior. So I have been blessed in many ways. A lot has happened in the church, in the area. I've seen phenomenal changes on the South Coast. Unbelievable. Oh, I could actually write a book in some of the memories that there are. But I remember my early days, the church was way out there on the hill.
Yeah.
It had a little road towards it. And that there was open veld, there was grasslands and that type of thing. And once a year, in the end of August, there was a massive celebration here, commemorating the landing of the Norwegian settlers. And then at Christmas time was also a highlight when we used to dance around the rings around the Christmas tree and sing the old traditional Norwegian folk songs and talk about God's goodness to us. So those are happy memories. There are a lot of other things which aren't really important in terms of our interview is concerned, but just to thank the Lord that and the privilege that I've been part of it all.
Wow, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
You certainly have been an active member of this church for a good few years, but over the course of the years that I have been here and you prior to that, talk to us about some of the changes that have taken place during the time that you have been around and witnessed, not just in the community, but here in our fellowship here at Norwegian Settlers Church as well.
Trevor, this is a wonderful question. It gives me great joy to be able to answer some of these things. It was in 1981 that Sven Bradeseth and Michelle were called to the ministry on the church here. The church had been without a pastor for many years. And this was the beginning of a transition, if I could say. A transition from a more Lutheran-based theology to a more open evangelical presentation of theology as we know it in our church today and what we are experiencing. Following the ministry of Sven, we had Ernie Hack that came. And we started to see a new lifestyle in the church. Doreen and I had been asked to do the gardens. And around this little church was a low concrete wall.
I remember
and
it.
a metal gate. And we parked on the grass on the outside. And we walked in and it's crunch, crunch,
Yeah.
crunch, crunch, crunch. And Doreen and I said, you know what? Let's don't worry about traditions. We're going to break this wall down and open the gardens up, which we did. And that seemed to be symbolical of a completely new era in the church. Then we came to Ernie Hack, gave notice that he was going back to America. And I was asked to chair a call committee. And we got together and we started to consider some names. And this one name came up of the name of Trevor Downham. And we pledged, the committee pledged that for 1 month we would pray that this was God's call upon your life. And we said, unless we have total unanimity, we are not extending a call to Trevor. When we came to meet on this given day, we were at peace. Everybody agreed. And we know the story, I think, that it was at my home that Trevor, come and have a cup of tea. And the call was, and Trevor, from the congregation, we must say how grateful we've been. We've seen so much that has changed. It's been unbelievable because God has been behind the whole thing. So it's been an amazing transition, and it's going to continue to change and evolve.
Yeah.
And we are now basically almost like a rainbow nation. We've seen history in the church. We've seen traditions are dying out almost altogether. We've got a new dimension in the church. I've come to understand the biblical principle of theological bookkeeping. To know that when God commissions something and the purpose is there for His kingdom to be extended, He will provide. And we are merely just catalysts of that.
Absolutely.
And we've seen just recently, we've opened up our diaconate. And we got 2 new members, history. And we look forward to the day when we're going to have some of our Zulu-speaking people to be part of that ministry. And that's something that I think is a big thing that we need to have a look at in the past and ask God to open up that area. So huge change, Trevor. You've been part of it, and thank you. From the congregation, thank you.
No, Brian. I remember so well that night where you invited me to come to your house, and I remember going home afterwards saying to Aline, when she said, well, how did it go? And I said, well, I think I like them more than they like me. And it has been a truly remarkable journey.
Amen.
You know, it has been. Amen. For someone like me, just, you know, a guy from a farming background, to come to a group of such supportive people who have been so compassionate towards me and my family. You and Doreen led the charge in that. You were so kind. And we are the ones that are really grateful to you for what you have done and facilitated in our lives. I remember, I'll never forget the day that Clive came and gave us the call. We didn't know what was going on in the background, but we're so grateful that we got to crack the nod to be invited to be pastoring here at this church. So thank you for your part in that. But Brian, over the course of times, you know, we look back at the original settlers, and they were a remarkable group of people. They paid a huge price to do what they did here. To think that in those days where this was just bush and black mamas around here, those people came, built their houses, and one of the first things that they did was actually to build this beautiful chapel that we still use today. This is so well used, and it's never become just a memorial place. It's a great place. Talk to us about how you feel about, have we honored the original settlers in what they came, the contributions they made at great cost for us to be able to do what we have done. Do you think we've honored them?
Yes, Trevor, I do believe what we have. I think the hard times that they had, because when they came here, things were tougher. A lot of the promises that were made to them never materialized. Yeah. And so I think they were really cast on the fear of the Lord, and the Lord brought them together and gave them a tremendous amount of courage and determination to know that to build His kingdom was the most important thing. I have a son right in Norway now as we do this interview, visiting some of the family, and those Norwegian people have got everything that they need. They've got everything. You know, Norway is such a rich country, greatest wealth fund in the world, and you know, when you have everything, you don't depend upon the Lord. So to know that those families that came, they were reliant on Him, our Father above, and I think that's what brought the true metal out of them. You know. Because let's face it, there were some characters amongst them. And some went and built a boat and sailed back to Norway.
Man, what a story.
A lot went to Australia. So there was just a small thing, a nucleus here. And then, of course, the ground for agricultural purposes. This is Dwighter. It's a clay. It's the worst type of soil on the south coast. We have the beautiful, fertile soil across the river at Amsenkulu and Amtentweni. No wonder the Norwegian families from here, when the government opened up and surveyed Orreby Flats, there was a huge drift of people across. Because my mom and dad were born on the flats. So I have an amazing history of Orreby Flats. And as we look at it today, that is the Bible Belt of the South Coast. When you look at it,
That's very
it's
true.
amazing, and all those roots were founded in those original settlers.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
There's some incredible local history that just smacks of Norwegians all over the place. I think even of the naming of some areas in the town, Oslo Beach, King Haakon Drive, all these old remembrances of the original settlers that were all part of the 100-acre scheme back in those times. So there were many challenges that they had to face over the course of time. But I think one of the things that strikes me is the incredible toughness of those people. But it must also just, what does it do for your heart to know that we've now connected so thoroughly with Norway? We have teams coming from universities and Bible colleges to our Norwegian Settlers Church here, that those guys who settled from Norway to come here, man, now we're bringing them in their hundreds every year to us to see how we share the gospel and to be contextualized into a South African thing. That must thrill your heart, Brian.
No, it is. It's amazing. It really fills my heart. But you know, we've got a ministry here to those Norwegian people. There's a big need for them to come to know the Lord and to commit their lives so that they have everything.
Yeah.
They have everything. And perhaps we can be the mission field to Norway that we have today. You know? Yeah, it's just amazing.
Yeah. I had an interesting incident when Mary Neetling, who used to do so beautifully the orientation for Norwegian visitors that came out, was unable to do a meeting one day, and there were a group of people who wanted to come to our museum. So they asked if I would do their orientation. So I was talking to this group of Norwegian people, and I was talking to them about Genesis and how this church has reached out into the community to help meet the needs of a very tragic world around us. And at the end of this, one of the Norwegian men came to me and he said, I can see that God is big in this church. And I said, well, we'd like to think so too. And he says, God's not big in Norway, you know that. So I said to him, well, why do you think that is true? He says, because we don't need God in Norway. We have everything that we need. And this man was relegating the need of God to physical needs. He didn't see that underneath all the physical needs, there are deep spiritual needs that we all need. And Norway, as beautiful as it is, they have the same spiritual need as we have. But here, the physical need seems to overwhelm it. But I'll never forget that day.
We have just touched on that subject, that perhaps we are going to be the mission field from here to Norway.
Go back again. Absolutely, Brian. Absolutely. Brian, it's been a privilege just sitting, chatting to you and hearing your reminisce of the past and just talking about some of the things. But Brian, what do you think, as a way of closing, is your feeling that you have towards this fellowship right now? Is there something significant that you would pray for our church with regard to the future, next generational stuff? What are you thinking in that regard?
Well, Doreen and my part in the church has changed and evolved quite a lot as to where we were before. We now have a ministry of prayer and supporting the works, and whatever the outreach of the church is, and it's been absolutely wonderful to see that it's happening. But in closing, I just want to share two stories with you that happened just yesterday. We were in the mall, and going back years ago, my cousin Jeff, Sid's brother, and we often joined them in the Langabalele area, visiting the Indian homes and taking the gospel to them. And it was a wonderful experience. That's many years ago. But yesterday, Doreen and I were in the mall, and we met a lady who was listening to this interview today. And she said to me that she visits and worships at the Norwegian Church. They grew up in Langabalele. Do I know Langabalele? I said, yes. Right opposite the Dunstan's farm, where they got all the macadamia nuts on that side, where all the pineapples used to be in the hills. I said, I've walked those hills with my cousin Jeff and Paddy, and just reaching and preaching the gospel to the people, unbeknown to what was going to happen. Wow. And she says, I don't know how it happened, but we are worshiping. We are from those families in that community that are worshiping in the church today. I said, please allow me. We need to have an interview with you and just explain what has happened. Trevor, within 10 minutes, on the other side of the aisle in the South Coast Mall, I met one of the Norwegian guys, older than I am, doesn't worship at the church at all. And he was in despair. His grandson was 27 years of age. He's got cancer, terminal cancer, and he was just distraught. And I thought to myself, here we have everything. We have a legacy. He has been part of it, and now being involved in the Lord's work, and has got a very low interest in Christian things. And we have the two opposites in the barrel.
Crazy.
So there is a huge amount of work to be done. There's a little song that we used to sing around the Christmas tree. It goes like this. I'll put my glasses on. Sorry, I need to read it. Just to sum up our interview, it says, come back with me to the old church on the hill. Scenes from our childhood we remember still. Proudly she stands with rolling hills around, the tolling of the bell, a deep and solemn sound. Set like a jewel in the garden fair, symbol of faith, the old church standing there. Peaceful the graves with each familiar name, 100 years has passed since those brave settlers came, 143 years now. Honor to those who built her stout and strong. Thanks to our God who has guided her so long. To all of you who keep her living still, come thanks from all who love the old church on the hill. And you know that verse in Psalm 34, verse 8, it says, "Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man who trusts in him."
Brian, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Lots has been done. Lots more to be done. We're all ready to go.
Brian, it's been a real privilege just to hear your thoughts and your reminiscing. Thank you for your time. But you're so right. I think we're only just beginning in many ways. The gospel is going out there. God's word is being spread. Good deeds are being done. And we are fulfilling, I believe, the mandate that God has called this church to 143 years ago. And so to the next generation of people who will be coming up behind people like Brian, myself, and others, we want to say to you, you know, the table has been set for you guys to be able to take this to a whole new level, a greater level of impact, a greater level of meaning in the cause of the kingdom. And our prayer is that the next generation are going to do thoroughly more than this generation has done. You guys have got your work cut out, but the table has now been set, and we pass it over to you. Thank you, folks, for listening to us. This has been a real privilege. Enjoy the rest of the service. Thank you. Bye-bye.